Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
We are witnessing a tale of two economies. At least that's what it seems the press is portraying when it comes to what it was like before the holidays in 2015 versus what it's like now in 2016. Welcome to the most widely watched and longest running source of Carolina business and public policy for 25 years now. I'm Chris William, and has our business and economy really changed virtually overnight? Or is it just perception? It is as good a place as any to start our discussion, and later on, Low Country resident and Palmetto State statesman Charlie Way joins the dialogue again.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Ivan Erlob, Executive Director of the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, David A. Doctor, President and CEO of E4 Carolinas, and special guest Charles Way Jr., Chairman of the Beach Company. Here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Good to have you both here. David, let's start with you. You know, there was a big announcement last year. It was a surprise announcement. Piedmont Natural Gas is being acquired by Duke Energy. It was a surprise announcement, not in every sector, but certainly in the energy business that's big. That is two prominent publicly traded Carolina energy companies merging. Is that ultimately good for the consumer?
Chris, it is. And you have to step back and look at it from the corporate macro standpoint to understand it. So you have to realize that Piedmont Natural Gas was in play, and somebody was going to buy it. Now, the people who are going to buy it, for the most part, were outside of the Carolinas. So imagine that Piedmont Natural Gas is owned by someone outside the Carolinas, say Kinder Morgan in Houston. Mm-hmm. Now, if that's the case, you now have an absentee landlord, much less concerned about the community, much less concerned about consumer reaction to rates and things like that. When you have hometown management, they're going to be more sensitive to what's going on locally, and I think that's the real value of that transaction to the consumers in the state.
So I don't want to get too down into the detail of this particular deal, David. However, so it sounds like, was this a defensive move by Duke versus a value acquisition?
No, it definitely was a value acquisition. The natural gas prices have declined, as everyone knows, precipitously. Natural gas is now an industry in play. There's development opportunities there. Duke had very little natural gas properties and very little talent. So by acquiring Piedmont Natural Gas, they immediately are in the game.
So Ivan is an advocate for public and consumers and sometimes being on the other side of an argument from some of the larger utility companies. Is this good for consumers?
Yeah, I would assume so. Natural gas is certainly rising as a resource for the energy backbone of our economy. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline bringing natural gas to the east, that's certainly a significant partnership between Piedmont Natural Gas and Duke Energy. The amount of natural gas power plants that have been built, we need natural gas for that, and that is replacing coal. We've retired over 3,000 megawatts or about to of coal capacity and shifted that to natural gas. Natural gas is the way it performs and functions is a much better match for where our energy economy is going in terms of technology and resource than coal is and has been. So certainly it makes sense from a technical perspective, I think, which means we're going to be able to bring in these lower cost future resources that are cleaner as well more easily if this results in kind of maintaining low cost access to and use of natural gas.
So natural gas, as you've talked about, and the cost of natural gas, you both have highlighted, has been at historic lows and as you said, David, precipitously dropping. Natural gas is a precursor to oil coming out of the ground in many cases. Oil, also historic lows, closing in on $30 a barrel, was 33 or 34 this week, or at least the week of the taping of this program. So let's talk about oil for a minute. What are the unintended negative consequences of having cheap oil? It's hard to imagine that it's bad to have low energy cost in oil.
Well, there is a downside, and that is the reliance on hydrocarbons. Okay? So
is increased because there's a disincentive to not.
That's exactly right. Even with natural gas, where power producers are swinging heavily toward that, it's an improvement from coal, but nonetheless it produces carbon. So we all realize that progressing to a carbon-free power production economy is where we eventually need to be. So the low natural gas prices forestalls research, development, experimentation with other sources that we know we eventually have to get to.
Yeah, Ivan, what's your take?
Well, the United States, while it is exporting refined petroleum products right now, because we have more than we need here at home, we still only command and have single-digit percentage of the global resource. So building off of David's point, this is simply just another kind of runway of time for us to seriously explore the question, what happens when the price goes back up, what happens when the resource becomes more limited, and how are we going to position our economy and business to be a global competitor and provider of that off-of-oil solution at prices people can afford.
Yeah, again, I want to stay with you for a second here, Ivan, and David, please weigh in on this, but as part of the Sustainable Energy Association in North Carolina, at least, Ivan, is this frustrating to you to say, wait a minute, we're still not talking, and I promise I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, we're still not talking about important issues like what happens after oil, after natural gas, where do we go, what's more important to develop? Are we now tabling any idea of alternative energy coming back into the picture meaningfully?
Oh no, it's quite the opposite. Alternative energy the last few years, and this trend will continue. It's not really alternative anymore. It's definitely mainstreaming in the global marketplace.
But what about the Carolinas? Is it
in the Carolinas, it also when we talk about our electricity generation fleet or portfolio, we're talking in maybe in the ballpark of 23,000 megawatts owned and operated by a utility, and we have over 11,000 megawatts of renewable energy projects registered with the North Carolina Utilities Commission that companies want to build in North Carolina. So thinking about that scale, if we even just build 20% of that in the next 3 years, which is likely, that is a threefold increase in our installed renewable energy capacity in the state. And I can't foresee any reason why that capacity won't get built.
Yeah, okay.
In that timeline.
We got about 30 seconds left, David. How does South Carolina stack up in alternative energy to North Carolina?
Well, North Carolina's been the leader. South Carolina's observed that and has recently taken actions, both with regulations, legislative, et cetera, business development activities, to step in and promote solar and alternative energy there. So you see you're seeing an upswing in development. And you're seeing development in South Carolina, such with fuel cells, that you're not seeing extensively in North Carolina. So they are leading in some areas.
Yeah, okay. And quickly, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the sunsetting of the renewable energy credits in North Carolina. Yeah. Is this a mortal wound to the growth of alternative business in North Carolina?
It is not. There are many factors that come into play in viable project financing for both energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy storage. It's nearsighted decision because for a lot of resources that are important to business and their bottom line in operations like fuel cells, combined heat and power systems to utilize their waste heat, geothermal, ground source heat pump systems, all were eligible. Energy storage was all eligible for our state tax credit. The decision was made more on a political take on solar, to the detriment of all of those other resources that are very desirable right now for the bottom line of our major employers.
Any chance the North Carolina General Assembly could revisit this idea, or is it dead for the foreseeable future?
It is literally a House divided and a Senate divided on that question, and some divide into kind of the politics for an election year, and some divide into policy for, diverse resources, affordable rates into the future, and growing business. And they can't agree right now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, guys. Stay with us. Our guest will come on in just a second. Next week on this program, he is the Commander-in-Chief biscuit maker. It's the CEO of Bojangles, named Clifton Rutledge. He's been at the firm now a little bit less than 2 years. We'll find out what Clifton's plan is to grow the biscuit maker, the homegrown biscuit maker, I might say. And then in a couple weeks, Stephen Tanger is the chairman and CEO of Tanger Companies. This is a string of outlets across the United States, certainly in the Southeast and certainly in the Carolinas, that have grown almost exponentially. Stephen Tanger will be here in 2 weeks. Since he joined the Charleston's The Beach Company in 1975, our guest's personal stock has been rising. In fact, there are not many South Carolinians who receive the state's highest civilian honor, Order of the Palmetto, once, let alone 2 times, as he has. His leadership tours include chair of Spoleto Festival, the South Carolina Chamber, the South Carolina State Board of Trustees, as well as USC, the College of Charleston, to name just a few. He also served as the South Carolina Secretary of Commerce for 4 years during the Hodges administration. We welcome back to our discussion the Honorable Charlie Way. Mr. Chairman, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. I'm sorry it's taken us, well, since you were in Commerce, to have you back. Charlie, when you look at the state of commercial development, everyone has said apartment homes are overbuilt in every market. Charleston, Columbia, Charlotte, Raleigh. Are we over the tips of our skis in that area?
I don't think so. Right now, I think the Beach Company, we have probably about 1,400 units under construction. And we've probably got another 800 or 900 in the pipeline. And we're just finding that there's a demand for these apartments. Now, an apartment that is built today is not the same apartment 20 years ago. They're much more efficient. They're smaller, but they're much more efficient. And they have in apartment projects, they have fitness rooms, they have business centers, community rooms. So it's a different type of apartment. And the new term is millennials, and we are having lots and lots of millennials living in these apartments. We have a lot of single people living in these apartments. It might be a studio, 600 square feet. To answer your question, we are studying it very, very closely. We don't want to start a project, and we won't start a project unless we feel very, very confident about its success.
Do you feel like the audience for this type of property, this type of product in development, is a result of homegrown demographic, or is it migration into the Carolinas?
I think both. We've had a lot of in Charleston. God knows, Charleston has become so popular. We've had a couple of projects that we've built there. A lot of those folks are homegrown, and we've had people that have moved to Charleston. They don't want to buy a house. As I was telling David a little earlier, a lot of people remember 2007 when they bought a house, let's say, for $100,000. They had a mortgage of $100,000. Then, bless God, it's now only worth $50,000, but you still owe $100,000. Those people don't want to have that happen to them again. They don't want to cut the grass. They want to have a AAA apartment project. They live in a AAA apartment community.
Yeah. Okay. David, question?
Charlie, you've done a lot of business on the coast, Department of Commerce. What about offshore energy development? What's the pulse of the people down in South Carolina with regard to offshore wind or offshore oil exploration?
Well, there's no real answer to that. You got a lot of people that are for it, and you got a lot of people against it. And I really don't have an opinion on it at this time because, to be truthful, I don't know enough about it.
Yep.
Ivan?
I was wondering, I'm hearing a lot about the trends of a lot of folks moving to the Carolinas, wanting to live in the urban or metro centers. How is that? Are there any overarching trends in response to what I think I'm observing, which is more kind of downtown development, infill development, that you're seeing or planning for?
Well, let me tell you. Let me give you an example. In Greenville, South Carolina, we have 2 apartment projects that are under construction. I think one's 350 units, the other's about 300 units, and we have people that are living in them right now. But they're living, and these apartment projects are in downtown Greenville, but they're working out in the suburbs. The people, a lot of people, they come back to this term millennial. They want to be in the downtown. They want to be in the action, but they're working out in the suburbs. And we find that in several places now.
You know, to follow up on that, you talk about Greenville. In Greenville, as you well know, Bob Hughes Development, won the bid to redevelop Bull Street in Columbia, which is the same, I'm assuming is the same type of demographic here, Charlie.
Right.
What would you advise Bob and city leaders in Columbia to get right when they do that?
I know Bob. I'm not going to advise him on anything. And the mayor, Steve Benjamin, I'm not going to advise him. Columbia is a different sort of market. We have, on the old prison property, we have 375 apartments. We're fixing to build another 300 apartments there. And Columbia is good. It's a wonderful market, but it has some problems that you have to take into consideration. You need to check and find out in the city limits of Columbia what percentage of the property, the real property, is tax exempt, and it'll shock you. I know the answer, so it will shock you.
What's the answer?
About 63%.
Really?
So, but that includes Fort Jackson, and you have the University of South Carolina. You have lots and lots of state government, local government, and city government properties there.
You know, I wish we could talk about the building and government building. Let me not quickly ask you, but so Bobby Hitt has your old job, Secretary of Commerce.
Doing a wonderful job.
Well, and to the point, how would you reflect on what's gone on with commerce in the state of South Carolina and economic development the last 4 years?
We're doing very, very well. Economic development, insofar as I can see, is doing very, very well. My gosh, in Charleston, we have Boeing. The numbers that I have batted around now is about 8,000 employees at Boeing. We've got Volvo coming. We have Daimler Chrysler is doing their facility there at Palmetto Commerce Park. So Charleston is doing very well. There are other parts of the state that are not doing quite as well. You've got your small rural areas, and they're just not doing as well. Greenville is booming. Your big metropolitan areas are doing very, very well. Take the little town, not little anymore, the town of Mount Pleasant, where I live. It's now the 4th largest city in the state of South Carolina. We have a great many people moving to South Carolina. As David and I were talking a little bit earlier, they would have down in Florida. People are leaving Florida now, coming north. And so the economy in South Carolina is real good. Now, irregardless of what the stock market's doing right now, because it's certainly had some bad times toward the first of the year.
Yeah, true. David, question?
Charlie, when you're thinking about putting a project together, there's a lot of technology out there that can help people manage energy consumption, home automation, stuff like that. Does your clientele, are they really interested in those types of products? Is it a big consideration for them?
It'd surprise you. Yes, the answer is very much so. But you have to also, David, realize under the present modern day business codes, construction codes, the apartments that are built today are nothing like the apartments that were built 20 and 30 years ago. These are very, very energy efficient apartments because with the appliances, et cetera. So, yeah, I would say the answer to that is yes.
That was exactly the question I was thinking of. I mean, it really does seem remarkable as all technology becomes smaller and more applicable just to kind of the individual experience or the experience of a building or a campus. Have you had?
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
One of the things that we're doing, and I thought I didn't think I was hearing correctly when our folks said we're going to start putting in electric charging stations in apartment complexes
For vehicles.
for vehicles, and I didn't know.
Are there that many electric vehicles that are on the road?
I have no earthly idea.
Is that worth the investment? I hate
I
to
guess
say
it
that
must
way.
be.
It's really fascinating what's happening in the uptake. They're penetrating the U.S. market twice as fast as hybrid vehicles did, and the costs of the parts and the cars are dropping precipitously.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, South Carolina State University, you are chair of the Board of Trustees. The new board is in, the old board is out. $23 million in debt. Questions about management, or rather mismanagement, for many years now. Mr. Chairman, is South Carolina State, is it a, this is not disrespectful, is it an asset that's worth saving, not just for Orangeburg and Orangeburg County? What is the future of that asset for the state of South Carolina?
I think it has a very good future, but, and it's a huge but, we have problems. For the present year, under this new board and the new administration that we have there, we have a balanced budget. In fact, we have a surplus. For the fiscal year 2015-16, we, when this new board, when we came in, we cut $19 million out of the budget. We have past debts that were not of our making. We have past deferred maintenance that were not of our making. South Carolina State is a state agency, just like the Department of Commerce, just like the Department of Health and Environmental Control, just like the Department of Transportation. The state is going to have to help us, and I think that they will help us because it is a valuable asset. It is one of the 2 land-grant colleges in the state of South Carolina. We have the 1890 program. So yes, it is a valuable asset, and it's worth keeping. And this new board is bound and determined to make it happen. You have to realize the 7 members of this new board are mostly retired, but they're very, very smart, truly smart, and they are, for example, James Clark, a retired AT&T vice president, Dory Helms, the retired provost from Clemson University under Jim Barker, Steve Swanson, retired owner of ATM that did 10% of the trades on the NASDAQ each and every day. Jeff Vinzani, a wonderful lawyer from Charleston. And then Donnie Shell, the ex-Patriots, Pittsburgh Steelers football player. And I don't know if I've left anybody out. Well, and Milton Irvin, the governor's appointee. He is a retired investment banker. He knows what he's doing.
Should it be we've got less than a minute. Should it be a state agency, or should it be something different?
You can't go back. A state's certainly not going to sell it. So it is a state agency.
Does it get its fair share of funding? If you use the land grant, Clemson University's a land grant. We're not going to have any time. In 30 seconds, does it get its fair share of funding like a Clemson does?
No.
Will it get its fair share?
Excuse me?
Will it get its fair share?
I would hope so, but I doubt it.
Yeah, okay. Come back on the program and talk about that a little bit more, because there's more to that. I know that we've had a chance to do that. Mr. Chairman, thanks for being back here and talking with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, good to see you again. Ivan, always nice to have you here. Thank you.
Good
luck with the renewable energy standard in North Carolina. That's always exciting.
It will.
David, good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, go to carolinabusinessreview.org and watch programs or make comments. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Have a good week. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health. Bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.